Okay, we are unmuted.
Welcome to the March 9th, 2021 City Council meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Webb,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lacuro,
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan,
Here.
Councilmember McFault,
Here.
Councilmember Londo.
Here. Need a motion to approve the revised agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised agenda.
Support.
Dissension, changes, discussion, seeing none. We have an agenda. Special presentation of the proclamation celebrating March 8th, 2021 as International Women's Day. Mr. Kosher, would you please read?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
The spot's a little strange.
Just a little way of saying.
thankfully,
Read it.
I have
You're reading
my reading glasses for just such an emergency. City of Hazel Park Proclamation, a proclamation celebrating March 8th, 2021 as International Women's Day. Whereas International Women's Day has been celebrated in some form or fashion since 1908, with the United Nations first passing a resolution proclaiming International Women's Day in 1977. And whereas International Women's Day recognizes the countless contributions made by women all over the world and seeks to celebrate a woman's achievements, raise awareness about women's equality issues, and lobby for gender parity. And whereas, according to UNICEF, it is estimated that 1 in 3 women around the world has experienced some form of physical or sexual abuse. Therefore, it is imperative to alleviate violence and discrimination against women and to afford women every opportunity to be full and productive members of their communities, because violence, discrimination, and harmful practices against women and girls are a direct result of negative social norms that undervalue females in society. And whereas, according to the United Nations, women across the world have access to fewer income earning opportunities and are more likely to manage the household or engage in agricultural work than men, making women vulnerable to economic insecurity caused by international disasters, long-term changes in weather patterns, and conflict. So, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Hazel Park supports the goals of International Women's Day and recognizes that the empowerment of women is intrinsically linked to the potential of a country to generate economic growth, sustain democracy, and achieve an inclusive society.
And proclamation is made. Thank you, sir. Takes us to civic announcements. Any council people have any civic announcements? Mr. Commissioner Charlie Carvel, do you wish to speak?
Hi, yeah, thank you all. I just wanted to give a quick COVID update. Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager, everyone. So I want to just give you 3 quick blurbs that will hopefully provide more information for what we're doing here in Oakland County government to serve you. So 1, I'll give you the funnel of where we've been and where we are in terms of vaccine distribution. I'll talk about what's new in the COVID vaccine rollout this week, and then I'll give you info for how you can make sure you're plugged in as much as possible. So to give you the funnel, Michigan has distributed 3.1 million doses of vaccine since December. Oakland County as a whole has gotten 335,000 doses as a whole. That includes both OakGov and the hospital systems and like Rite Aid and CVS and all that. From the OakGov perspective, we have gotten 89,000 doses since December. And then this week, Oakland County got 10,460 new doses of the 2-shot vaccine from Pfizer and Moderna, and 7,400 doses from Johnson & Johnson, the 1-shot vaccine. So that's a total of 17,860 doses. So that's the whole grand thing of where we are. What's new is soon the governor will be rolling out 50 and up, receiving with health concerns, being eligible to receive the vaccine. Second, Oakland County has heard residents talking about a need for intellectual and physical disabilities to be taken into account. So there will be a box and a separate part of the form online when you go to save your spot or when you call a nurse on call. That'll be a question that'll be asked so that your extra health concern can be taken into consideration. And the last thing is Oakland County is going to be rolling out its homebound program. So if anyone who's paying attention here was someone who or knows someone who received a flu shot back in 2019 through the Area Agency on Aging or Oakland County Government Public Health homebound vaccination program. This is going to be a lot like that. So the number you'll have to call is 810-331-0902, and I can send this along to the clerk afterwards. This brings me to the last part 3, which is giving you all the info you might need. So if you want to call to ask questions or get in line to receive the vaccine, again, from the Oakland County system, not the healthcare systems, but the Oakland County system, it's 800-848-5533. If you want to go online to register to save your spot, it's oaklandcountyvaccine.com. If you want text updates, text OakGov COVID to 468311. If you want to talk to me and talk to our team here in the 18th district, because you have a particular question you'd like help navigating, call us at 248-807-4347. That's the cell. It's on me all times. And also this Friday, we'll be having a local community leaders government conversation with some folks from the state and county, being able to give local government and elected leaders here in the 18th district an update on how COVID rollout is going and have a two-way conversation to make sure that we can be meeting everyone's needs as quickly as possible. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have, and we'll send this info along to the clerk.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it very much. Any other civic announcements for the audience?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to say some nice things about.
I would like to speak.
Go ahead, Lois.
Thank you. I'm Lois Rydell from the Hazel Park neighborhood in Richmond. We all want this to be healthy and to have our COVID virus end. So we are planning ahead. Maybe in June, we'll have our first citywide garage sale the first week. Then through the summer, the beautification signs will be placed on all the beautiful flowers that we're so eager to see. Then Halloween is upon us with signs in October to show off our ghosts and pumpkin displays. Hope other new ideas will spring up and we don't duplicate. All information will be on Facebook, and we are hoping our Hazel Park parade and our Lions beer tent will lead us off in a healthy Hazel Park if possible. Stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois.
You're
Anyone
welcome.
wishing to speak? Ms. Klobuchar, you were saying?
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to praise our new commissioner, Gazelle, for his work in making sure that we expedite the vaccination process as soon as possible. He's been very committed to making sure that people in his district have a chance to obtain that vaccine. And we're meeting again via Zoom with him on Friday. And we want to thank him for the leadership that he has shown and provided in this very critical and important issue. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. I have a civic announcement I'd like to make. We have yard waste pickup for the leaves and grass will be April 5th. And we will be putting on the parade for Memorial Day weekend. We do not have a definite on whether or not we will have a fair. We are in limbo as far as the beer tent goes. I'm sorry, Lois, but we will try. We have to listen to the governor and see where they want to take us on that. And hopefully we can get that to spurt off. And the part with the fair is it all depends on whether the actual fair people can make it down here and be able to participate if we're able to do that.
If I can chip in.
Sure.
So I'm on the planning commission of the art fair, and the current restrictions for food and beer are pretty
Tight.
tight. It has to be a completely separate area. It has to be open, not enclosed. Like it has to be open from
Right.
the walls. Tables have to be 6 feet apart. There can be no more than 6 people at a table, and no walking around with your beverages or your food. So that's where we're at right now. That might change before as things move forward, but
Yeah,
pretty.
thank you for that. And I hope that it does change because it would be nice to get somewhat normal back in our community as far as some things that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may add, it's going to depend on really whether or not it's dependent on the restrictions, and it's going to depend on whether or not the carnival company feels that there's enough trust and confidence to go out and do that.
Right.
Now, there are smaller things that we can do too. I mean, before we had the large festival. After the parade, there was a picnic in the park afterwards, and community organizations sponsored different small events and smaller things. So I think we'll have to play it by ear, but I think we're all committed to doing something to make sure that we commemorate sacrifice and the brave men and women who served in the United States Armed Forces. So we'll obviously be doing a ceremony at City Hall, and then at this point, we're planning the parade, and we'll keep you informed. Obviously, as soon as we know something, we'll keep you informed and the residents informed as well as to what type of activities we'll be able to participate in.
Thank you. I'd like to move it to public discussion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Robinson.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Administration, everyone else.
I need your address.
Oh, 2353 Hoover Avenue, Hazel Park Historical Commission. Tonight, I come to speak to you on subjects relevant to our boards and commissions. Firstly, at the most recent City Council meeting on the 23rd of February, I did speak regarding the new bylaws of the Hazel Park Historical Commission, offering my public thanks for the assistance with them rendered by the City Attorney, Amanda Mason. My appreciation with professional help in developing what was actually my first ever legal document that would enter into any form of force was genuine. However, it appears that one council member significantly misinterpreted my phrasing and instead gave further thanks to the city attorney for writing them in the first place. This follows along with our city manager at the meeting early that month. So I do wish for this confusion to be cleared up. The bylaws that the council voted upon were originally written by myself with editorial help from the city attorney, Amanda Mason. It was also my understanding that, as I was later told by the city administrator and city attorney, that it did receive further substantive editing and modification of its provisions, although not until after its approval by council. The misconstruction was something I could acknowledge as a simple error, especially as I don't seek personal acknowledgement for myself. However, given that this misconstruction persisted after my initial clarification, and coupled with other issues in this context, give cause for concern for others that are not just myself. This does lead me to my second issue. For those unaware, as it currently stands, the terms for every single historical commission is set to expire as of the end of this month. This comes across as an anomaly to me, as I received a notification of the pending end of my historical commission term last autumn, coinciding approximately with the 2-year mark since I was first appointed in 2018. As requested by the notice then, I submitted my reapplication. And while no mention of it was also made for my similar appointment to the Hazel Park Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, which would have been set to expire a month after that, I did resubmit an application for that as well. Several months passed with no word until mid-February, where I received a letter informing me that my term on the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority had expired, in spite of 3 separate issues here. That 1, this was months after it should have passed. That 2, I had in fact submitted a reapplication months before that it was never considered by council. And 3rd, that I had never been notified beforehand of this. Having spoken to other current and former members of our boards and commissions, I found that this experience of mine was not unique. I've had a number of days to think over this, but during none of it was I able to come to any way to rationalize this in a way that indicated this was the behavior of an open, transparent, and objective government. And this hasn't been the first time. I am still keenly aware of how, back in early 2020, the City Council voted to, and I quote, suspend all activities of the Historical Commission pending an investigation. This was an unprecedented action and was came across in bad faith for two major reasons. Firstly was that no such investigation specified in the motion was ever made. No historical commissioner was ever questioned or anything of theirs examined. The only activity that occurred was a single meeting several months later, during which again, no investigation or examination was made or revealed, only discussion of a plan to move forward. Secondly was that while the suspension was on all activities of the commission as a whole, instead of lifting that, it was reinterpreted creatively as a number of suspensions upon each individual member, with two of those suspensions being left to remain. Initial justification was given those two suspensions based upon their inability to make the aforementioned meeting. However, this was quickly shattered when it was made clear that one of these commissioners had never been informed of the meeting in the first place. The initial response to this revelation was that the city council was attempting to place the entire burden of effort upon this lone commissioner to seek out and arrange meetings with the city upon her own time and her own dime. It's actions like this that have led me in the past to level accusations that the city council and city administration have largely left their boards and commissions to fend for themselves as they strive to make great things happen in Hazel Park. And while I had seen some acts that I had interpreted as a sign that things were turning for the better, it appears that my interpretation might have been a mistake. Instead, it appears that we have a city that appears set upon operating on arbitrary rules with subjective interpretation, with the primary aim of self-aggrandizement. We have a council and administration that, as many who have watched before might notice, rarely, if ever, take notice of the effort of the city's numerous unpaid volunteers constantly working to make great things happening in the city they love. But at every meeting, will comment on the work of members of under the administration who are being paid to do a job. This is a severe issue and has only negative consequences. At its most basic, we have a city telling those that would think of volunteering that it does not care about their efforts one way or the other. However, when a government starts being thus arbitrary, playing favorites, this extends further. What sort of message does this send to people considering moving to our city, if they might not be able to rely upon their government to guarantee them the same concern and service they had given to all its residents? And what sort of message does it send to those thinking of bringing their business to our city, providing jobs and boosting our local economy, that they would have reason to wonder whether the city cares about their presence at all? It's questions like these that make me worried for my city, questions that I hope have reasonable answers and
Thank you,
demonstrate.
Mr. Robinson. I appreciate your time. The 5 minutes is up.
That was my last couple sentences.
I just want to let you know there's a 5 minute. We try to keep as much as we can, but you've got your point across, and we greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, close public discussion. Takes us to the consent agenda, 1 through 5. Council,
I'll move approval, Mr. Mayor, of consent agenda items 1 through 5.
Second.
no discussion on 1 through 5 from anybody? I would like to say thank you to Mr. Young for the water sewer informational here and the resolution for the mutual aid and assistance from other communities. Thank you.
He worked very hard on that.
Yes, you did. Takes us to administrative reports, ordinance to add Title 18 Human Rights first reading. And this was brought to us by our Councilman Longo. But I'd like to see if we can get a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of Title 18 Human Rights on first reading.
Support.
Maybe more discussion, Mr. Longo.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance is personal to me. Being a white, cisgender, straight presenting male, I am acutely aware of the place of privilege I occupy However, I remember quitting high school sports because it was easier than coming out. I remember spending my first day of employment in a job at a political party, hearing that someone in a position of prominence called the executive director demanding I be fired because of who I love. I remember hearing the three-letter F word more times than I can count and not saying anything so as not to offend the offender or diminish my perception among those who I was with. This ordinance is personal because I am bisexual, and my experience is the rule, not the exception. Every day, people are turned away from housing, employment, and other services they deserve access to because of who they are. This ordinance is for them just as much as it is for me and the LGBTQ population in Hazel Park. That said, I want to be clear about something. This ordinance is merely the codification of what is already commonplace in Hazel Park. This ordinance is exactly who we are. We are the friendly city because of our acceptance of our diversity in all aspects of life: race, color, religion, gender, age, height or weight, marital status, familial status, national origin, disability, sexual orientation, and gender identity and expression. After I joined City Council and when I told people that I wanted to introduce this ordinance, I received shock at the fact that it does not already exist. After all, it was 17 years ago when Mayor Webb and Mayor Pro Tem Lucero came out against Proposal 2, and the City of Hazel Park voted against it as well. It was 9 years ago when two brave Hazel Park residents stood up against the state's ban on same-sex marriage, with the support of our residents flanking them all the way to the Supreme Court. It was 3 years ago when we began flying the rainbow flag outside City Hall and celebrating Pride Month. This ordinance is who we are. This ordinance is what we stand for. I'm just here to make sure it's codified into law, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I wanted to thank Luke for bringing this forward. This was an initiative that he and I had originally, the first time he and I worked together, was on this just before my house fire. And then obviously my roads kind of switched directions for a bit. So this kind of finalization and bringing this forward was really, I feel it's at a good time, and I feel that it's important that we have this recognition in our ordinances because we are an accepting city and we are a city full of love. And I think that this matters, and I'm grateful to be part of it.
Any other discussion on this issue?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say that I'm proud of Councilmember Mondo for introducing this and bringing this up. As he said, Hazel Park has a long history of standing up for and with the LGBTQ plus community. We stood against the nasty, terrible Proposal 2 in 2004, and our residents very wisely turned that down. And as he says, this is who we are. So it just codifies who we are for who we have been for the people to this case. So,
Well, 17 years ago, we went up against Proposal 2 because we felt it was civilly wrong. And, you know, people have a right to do as they please and wish to love who they love based on what their heart wants. And there's nobody should have the right to stand up there and have rules to dictate otherwise. But I think it's also important that the protections are there to protect people that need that protection. And that's what this is really forced for. And I think it's a very good move that. Thank you. Item 2, administrative reports to amend Title 5 Health and Safety by adding Chapter 5.30 food trucks. Yes.
I'm sorry, we had discussion, but we didn't actually.
Yeah, we did.
no, we voted.
We did.
I asked for no, is there any dissension? I said, nobody
I just want to
dissented?
make sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I like to have the
For the record, there was no dissension.
Okay, there was no
dissension.
I asked, but thank you.
Okay.
Supported, no dissension.
Yeah, then I went straight to
Moved by
discussion.
Rondo, supported by Sullivan, unanimous. You guys
Unanimous.
all five voted yes.
Yes.
So anyways, go on to, again, item 2, Title 5 Health and Safety by adding Chapter 5.30 food truck first reading. Mr. Klobuchar would like you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Jeffrey Campbell has called in. He's quite under the weather today, so I want to thank him for his Zoom appearance tonight.
Aw.
He drafted this ordinance in response to some questions that we've had from some of you about food trucks. It's here for first reading. I know in speaking with all of you that there are some minor changes to each and every one of you after this ordinance. So if you wish, you may outline your minor changes, and then we can adopt on first reading and bring it back to you next meeting for second reading with those amendments included. Our goal is to encourage food trucks. Our goal is to make sure, though, that we are properly ensuring the safe operation of this.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the amending Title V of the Health and Safety by adding Chapter 5.30 food and trucks on first reading.
Support.
I have any dissension?
I'd like to,
Discussion. There you go, sir.
I move that we amend move that we amend section 530.080 subsection J. Subsection J says that no food truck may be parked on an unimproved surface, including but not limited to grass, dirt, gravel, or any other surface. Vendor's food truck must be parked on a foot-approved asphalt or concrete surface. I'd like to add a provision that a food truck may be parked on those surfaces with the express written consent of the city administration.
I would like to comment on it as well. I think that we need to have it where it specifies that, but also maybe we could put something in there to specify that there be a substrate surface underneath, like a plastic tarp or something to protect our ground, rather than have it just parked on an approval basis.
We can do that administratively, but like when we do Memorial Day, we park food trucks all over the place. So we want to make sure we got that ability to waive that provision.
Yeah, and I understand and I agree with that.
Do we
but I
require
think-
targets under the ones for?
But I think we need to,
It depends on weather sometimes and how wet the ground is.
I can see it leaking like oil or something.
So we
Oh, yeah,
try to
yes.
do that, just that, but usually there is some form of material under there to catch anything that might leak or cause damage.
if nothing else, it's required in the drip pan underneath the engine.
We can do that.
That way it can be caught.
Yeah.
Because not all these vehicles are that new.
Right.
Especially some of the fares. Any other comments?
And Andy had some, I think he's given.
I've given them to you, so that we need to be amended and come back at second.
Yes.
That's how we usually.
Yep.
Councilman Londo had the same thing. That was
Yeah.
gonna bring it.
Same, my issue is Jay, my concern is rather
No,
not is Jay.
I'm
because
glad
of
you
the
guys
hurt
found
council, not clear.
Yeah. Because there could be.
That was the first thing I
apparently you all
thought.
thought, Yeah, that needs to, that definitely needs to be
Let's say
amended.
approval, that's an easy fix, I love that.
And hopefully we're gonna see some more of these again. I talked to, I think, most of you, about, bringing in some food trucks and how we can utilize them to create some interesting events for the city, and we hope to be doing that this spring. So,
Especially in certain parts.
certain parts, absolutely.
And the other part of
Good
that,
ideas.
and the other part of that is to have pads on the tires. So our DPW doesn't have to fix ruts. And whenever the trucks park there for any length of time, they need more than 24 hours. So maybe that's something that.
Yeah, I just don't want our own events to be pretty.
No, but we have to be very cautious.
Not that it,
Please show
it
them so
doesn't
our
matter.
food trucks are fair.
Any dissensions of passing this? Okay, we have, that's passed. Boards and commissions, any wishes?
We have an application for Adam Huberstein to be appointed to the historical commission.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Adam Huberstein to the Historical Commission. Or
Any dissension? Motion passes. Welcome, Adam.
I think he'll make a great addition to that. Also being on the library.
Yeah, I had a wonderful interaction with him, planning a Black History Month event, an online event with him And I think the resources that he brings and that he will bring to the historical commission are just wonderful.
Okay, resident communication, new business.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've been approached by, I don't know, at least 3 city council people to take a look at C-Click Fix. So we're going to do that. Lacey and I have already begun investigating that. So I should have some information for you, but we'll also look at some other options too, like creating our own app and doing some things that may be able to improve resident communications and ability for residents to report to us things that are problems or complaints that they may have. We did meet with Unitrax too, which is also what I would call an information provider that deals more with finance and budgets and things like that as well. So we're looking at that, and they did have some experience with that provider and another provider. So they were able to give us, I think, we were able to give us some pretty good insight. So we should have something for you, the next meeting.
Thank you. I see one of our Superintendent Jones has his hand up. Would you like to speak, Mr. Jones? Tom, are you there?
Yeah. I was wondering about that.
Okay, he has his little hand clicked on Zoom there. Thank you, Tom.
Do we need a motion on that?
But we'll do it.
Okay.
We'll get it. We know you want it. Andy brought it up to me like
3 years ago.
2 years
Yeah.
ago. I mentioned it. He's met.
Right. I was gonna say, I feel that. Most recently, Ed and I had a very long heated discussion, and I was like, put it on the agenda.
And we'll bring it to you, but like I said, I also want to let everybody know too, that we have a great complaint portal at our website as well. So we'll take a look at this, we'll see if it is duplicative, we'll see how it works, how it brings back all the information that we find. And there's also a second one as well that we'll look at as well, that's almost the same thing. And we'll get you the pros and cons in each one of them, and we're gonna bring the pros and cons of us participating with new metrics too. These are under my spending limit, so if it's good, as soon if you like it, we'll pull the trigger and we'll get it up and running. So I know that everyone's expressing interest in it. When I told Andy said, "Well, I asked you about that 2 years ago."
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Andy. Okay. So yeah,
I also want to bring up one thing we just kind of slipped by here. I missed it in the packet. A recognition for, whereas Mr. Nardis was also known as many, was a valued community member, friend, Hazel Park School employee, a longtime resident of the city of Hazel Park. And whereas Mr. Nardis volunteered for the Hazel Park Mobile Communication Support Unit for a total of 30 years, from 1986 to 2016. And as a base operator, demonstrating great passion for the work that she did and for the people that she helped along the way. And whereas the passing of Mr. Nardis will be a great loss to the city of Hazel Park, the community, her family, and all that knew her, and her warm spirit, dedication, and love for those who she met. So now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the city of Hazel Park honors Mrs. Nardis and her many years of service helping to protect the city of Hazel Park, and we extend our deepest sympathy to her and her family and many friends. She will not be forgotten. I knew many very well, and we'll all miss her, sweet lady.
Yeah, and she did spend 30 years volunteering with mobile communication support unit. So we want to extend our deepest sympathies to her family and thank her for her many years of service.
She's a great lady.
She will not be forgotten.
One of the sweetest ladies to go on to.
Long time school employee, a lot of kids have a lot of great stories about her.
Okay, communications from Councilperson Sullivan. Oh, sorry.
I would like to speak to that.
Department heads.
Hold on.
Any department heads wishing to speak? Mr. Young, Mr. Jones?
Sure, I had something. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you
We
today.
can hear you,
Very
Tim.
good. I just wanted to drop a quick note to the homeowners and such with this last year with the pandemic, and we're all trying to do what we can to keep our houses clean.
Speak up a little bit, Mr. Young.
Tim, speak up.
Okay, these little handy wipes that everybody's been using forever that do say flushable, not necessarily break down like we would like them to inside the sewer systems. So please be cautious how you use them and how you dispose of them, because they are causing issues in residential lines as well as pump stations throughout the systems, as well as us. When we clean lines, we pull back our equipment and these things are just stuck all over it. So I'll do a little bit more of an in-depth write-up and put it on our website regarding these things. But just real quick, just bear with me. This one, this jar, I think you can see it. I put this flushable inside this jar of water at 9 a.m. this morning, and it hasn't even dissolved at all. So this kind of gives you an idea. This is just one. So if you're using dozens of these a day, you're really going to cause yourself some problems later on. So just be cautious what you do with them and how you dispose of them. Most likely best would be the garbage, but they do say flushable, so people will feel they can. Just know that they don't really dissolve as easily as they can. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. I've had plumbers, I work with a lot of plumbers, and they will tell you, it says flushable, don't do it. Don't do it. Well, it's what says it right on the package.
Right. A good rule of thumb, I always tell people, if it can't dissolve in water, don't put it down your drain. Because a lot of things are flushable. I can flush a sock down. Make it.
Don't do
It
that.
isn't going to disappear. So if it doesn't really dissolve in water, it's best not to put it down.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Tim, while you're there, did you want to talk a little bit about if residents have an issue about their water bill, they can contact the water department, correct? And we'll come out, take a look, leak test. There are even ways to have your meter tested, correct?
Yeah, we can test meters. It's a big process. Generally, the meters don't really cause an issue for the billing. A lot of people assume that we have control of the meter and how it works. We don't. The meters can't count water till water passes through them, and the only way it passes through them is for the household or business in general to draw water through a sink, a piece of equipment, or any type of other item that uses water. We find that a lot of times people will get a fast or a high bill, and then we'll see that it by the next month it's back to normal, because either the issue corrected itself, such as a toilet flapper that has a tendency to stick now isn't sticking, or a check valve that was frozen open maybe on a backup system is no longer frozen open. It locked itself back down. We've been putting information on our website and talking with residents about these issues. Due to COVID, we haven't really been spending much time inside homes because we want to keep our staff protected as much as we can, because we're a small staff. We can't really afford to go down too easily. But we can talk through everything on the phone with them, how to walk through their house and look for things. Toilets always are the big culprit. And then also at this time of the year, a lot of people have forgotten to shut off their outside spigots, and now their hoses are froze and broke and they're leaking. So just check around your house for everything. Now, they did put the moratorium out about people's water bills and not being able to be shut off for non-payments, but that moratorium never stated that you shouldn't be paying your bills. So anybody that's got a high bill, you can call us and we can go through it with you, but we're finding majority of it, people mistaken that they weren't supposed to pay those water bills, and they haven't been. So this is where we stand with a lot of the issues coming up. Now that moratorium is supposed to end at the end of the month.
Thank you very much.
While you're talking, would you mind speaking on the kind of exclusive program that we do here in Hazel Park, where you monitor unusual usage and the way that you reach out to residents so they know when they find these notifications that it is important for them to call?
Sure. Okay. So each month the city does a billing. where we go out and we read citywide. It's electronically done, so our truck drives down the street and captures the reads from that little radio box that's connected to the meter in the home. And then once we've done the read, it takes us about 3 or 4 hours to get the whole town read. We download it. And then our girls, Linda and Danielle at City Hall, they run a report that helps to pull out those addresses or accounts that showed a odd type of reading, whether it was too high from normal usage or was really, really low. So at that point, they'll actually create what we call a double check report, and that'll be given to the service guy. She'll list probably 50, 60 houses each month that we'll personally go out and knock on the door and inform people, hi, we're here because we see you have a real high water usage last month. Sometimes people say, yeah, my hot water tank broke and it leaked all over, so that's what it was. Other times people actually don't even have a clue. And when we start talking to them about it, they'll say, oh yeah, I did hear my toilet making a funny sound, and they find out it's been running on them for a few weeks. So we do our best to do that. Now, when we leave the information and people don't contact us back, we just assume that they've recognized the problem and solved it. So we don't really have the manpower to keep revisiting that. So we'll put notes in there that we've left information there for the homeowners to check out their house or give us a call. If we were in normal times, we would go inside and look around for them. Hopefully these times are going to come back to the norm for us all. But basically that's how it works. We do recognize them. Anything that's extreme, we'll immediately go out without having a good note. So as soon as the computer presents the information, if it's an extreme read, we'll call the service guy right then and there and go by this house and check it out. A lot of times it's a vacant house with a broken pipe or something. Other times the homeowner, it might just happen, the homeowner isn't aware of it. But most of the time it usually takes us about 5 to 6 days to put this report together before our service guy heads out and starts checking on the individual homes. And then if people respond, we can set up appointments with them to discuss the issue, or like I said, with normal times, we'll come over to their home and go through it with them and show them what they need to be watching for.
Thank you. Tim and I have had many conversations about water issues. And this program, the monitoring that our water department does is pretty exclusive to our community. And I think it's a really big value because many of our homes are older, and that older plumbing catches up with us, that older infrastructure catches up with us. So I do appreciate that. And I appreciate all of his patience in my many, many emails to him, even on Sundays, and the hard work of the people in our DPW and our water department. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
Also on the website, we do have an infographic, and we have some tips and tricks on things to check if you're noticing that your bill is higher or that your meter is running, and ways to know those things and prevent them.
Yeah, the most simple way is just look at your water meter, and on the top there's some red needles or maybe even a red triangle depending on what style it is. And if nobody's using water, that meter shouldn't be spinning. Nothing should be whirling on that meter at all. That's a fast indicator to say something's drawing water within your home. A way to check and see if your home is doing it, you could just try shutting off the valve at the meter, and when the meter stops spinning, then you know that something in the house is drawing water because the meter's spinning. So a good thing that was a lot of work at the time, but I got to commend the council and the city manager. It was back in the day when we used to do quarterly readings, and now we're doing them monthly. We had to give up a few things service-wise with that, but when it comes down to a high water bill, we're catching people within that month of that water bill rather than 3 months of a high water bill.
Years ago, we used to have to catch them with $600-700 water bills.
Correct. I mean, it could still be high depending on the leak, but yeah, if you got a general leak of a toilet, yeah, it would be 3 months before we would actually visit your house and say, we're noticing something. So now we're out there pretty much every month on houses now.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Thank you.
Okay, any communications from any other department heads here? Seeing no one. Communications from the city attorney. Thank you. City manager.
Yeah. Again, City of Hazel Park's had some good news economically recently. We've been featured in TV news and different publications about that, the fact that we're an attractive place to move to and to do business, and we're focused on some of our business developments and on new housing projects that we have. And I want to make sure people understand something, that we are an older, mature, fully built out community. And while we're grateful that these things are happening, and they're certainly positive for us, they are by no means putting us on some sort of financial easy street. Okay, when I say the Michigan system of municipal finance is fundamentally broken at every meeting, I say that because it is so. And I say that because not only is that broken, but our entire system of taxation that enables municipal finance is also broken. So when we lost value in our properties, when property values crashed in the 2008, 2009 Great Recession, those property values for the vast majority of our community have stayed at that depressed level in terms of our taxable value. Well, the values for sale of the properties have gone up quite a bit, and thankfully, the people who own those properties have recovered their value and then some, and those are all positive things. And I'm grateful those things have happened, and we've worked very hard to protect everyone's investment and make sure they happen. Our taxable value, because of that decline, is still trapped artificially at those much lower levels. We were discussing that with the representatives from Unitrax yesterday, and they were amazed at the progress that we've made. But as they pointed out, there's no way for us to really escape that depression of taxable value because it's systemic with the Headley Amendment and proposed way in the way that those two constitutional amendments interact. So everything that we do, we're doing just to keep ourselves above water, self-spread water. Please remember, we have huge legacy costs with respect to retiree pensions and health care, as well as aging infrastructure that has to be maintained. So everything that we're doing in terms of increased value for property taxes for these developments, they won't even pay for the increased costs that we're going to have for our pension system in the next 2 years, because MERS, the Michigan Employee Retirement System, has redone their actuarial assumptions, and our costs are going to increase dramatically for those pensions. And if we can't make those pension contributions, gee, you know what happens? The judgment levy is levied. You don't get to vote on that, and your taxes will go up. So we're doing what we can do to prepare to meet those obligations. And we're doing what we can do to continue to provide outstanding police, fire, and public works services to our residents. Yep, I wish I could repave every side street. I wish that I could give, I would roll back everybody's taxes. I wish I could do all of those things for you. But those things are not possible right now. And it's more important than ever that everybody understand that the solutions to these problems are not at the city of Hazel Park, they are in Lansing. And so pressure your legislators to make changes to heavily property into our state's really antiquated archaic property tax system to enable communities to do a better job of serving you, maybe perhaps without so much reliance on property tax. I want you to understand, if you sell your home and your home untaxed, the person who buys your home, their taxes may double. And the person who lives next door to you, who hasn't sold their home, their taxes stay the same. So you have two people paying dramatically different tax bills for the same house. And I also want everybody to understand that when your house does uncap and the taxes go up and the taxes are doubled on that property, Hazel Park does not get any extra money from that uncapping. Why? Because then the Headley Amendment kicks in, which says you can't get more than the rate of inflation from your existing tax base. So every other property in the city gets a tiny infinitesimal cut in the tax rates. Well, this person is paying twice as much in taxes. So the city is basically trapped in a vice in a game that we cannot win. The only way to generate new revenue is through new construction. So that's why we're working so hard to develop so much in so many different places, because we know we have these expenses. And we want more than anything to be able to continue to provide the outstanding services that the people of Hazel Park are used to. So we're doing what we can to promote development. That's one of the reasons why we moved into marijuana, and that's now starting to generate a small amount of funds comparatively in terms of the size of our budget. But we hope that that amount of money will grow, And we're doing all that we can to make sure that we're keeping Hazel Park a great place to live, work, start a business, and visit. And I've lived here my whole life. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish and working with this great city council that I work with and my fantastic department heads. I think we're only going to do more. We need to enlist everyone for their help to help us with financing so that we can make those changes there, so we can build a more equitable tax and municipal finance system for these older communities. So I'm talking more about this in the future. I don't know if I'm talking more than I already have been about it since talking about nothing else for 10 years, but we'll see if we can find some new ways to present this important information to our residents.
In 1984, Ridley with Prop A was a Band-Aid to the already problematic tax problem. And they were supposed to fix that Band-Aid. But again, term limits came into play. They lost the inherent history of legislators that put it in place in the first place.
There is a problem with lack of institutional memory in the legislature. Our state revenue sharing, another component of our municipal finance picture, revenue sharing was cut by 1/3 over the 2000s. And now legislators come in and they say, well, hey, we just increased, revenue sharing 2 or 3%, we got you an increase. They have no idea that the base number on which they're increasing is nowhere near what it used to be. So there's a great lack of understanding, I think, in the legislature about how municipal finance really works. So I'm hopeful that partnership with the league and other communities, we can make some changes in those areas. But we need our residents to understand how this works and why it's so hard for us to really benefit from some of the things that we're doing in terms of working hard to increase our values. And glad we're able to deliver this value to them because our story is impressive. It's almost amazing. The guy from Unitrex he couldn't believe how we had rebounded. But I want everybody to know, that rebound does not mean that the streets are paved with gold and that we have all the free revenue, because that's not true.
And it's just not our community is suffering from pending. A lot of communities in the inner ring suburbs, especially, are suffering as well. Communications from Councilman Mondo.
I just want to say again how grateful I am for the opportunity to introduce our Human Rights Ordinance 01/2021, and I'm honored by the second of Councilmember Sullivan and by the support of the rest of the council. Additionally, our city manager Ed Klobuchar has been extremely supportive, and City Attorney Melissa Schwartz was instrumental in turning an idea into a beautifully simple ordinance. However, our action tonight should not be necessary. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that our state is once again debating whether or not the LGBTQ community deserves to be treated the same level of equitable access and fundamental human decency the rest of the population enjoys in everyday life. There is a bill in the Michigan House that would amend the state Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act to include sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, and I implore them to pass it. There is a bill in the state Senate, SB 208, sponsored by our very own Senator Jeremy Moss, who is one of 3 openly gay members of our legislature, that would accomplish the same thing, and I encourage them to do so. There are petitions by a ballot question committee, Fair and Equal Michigan, that should be certified soon by the Michigan Department of State, that will also provide the legislature the opportunity to do the right thing. I hope that we are the last municipal or governmental entity that introduces an ordinance like this, not because the LGBTQ population doesn't deserve civil rights in communities like Hazel Park, but because we deserve civil rights all across Michigan and all across the country. I'm happy to help make my corner of the world a little bit better. I hope those who occupy slightly larger corners to stand up and do the same thing. Or the people of Michigan will stop asking nicely and do it themselves in 2022. On a lighter note, yesterday was International Women's Day, and I'd like to recognize my friend, Councilmember Alyssa Sullivan, joint Project Hall colleague, as well as our City Attorney Melissa Schwartz and Chief Financial Officer Lacey Christensen. Thank you.
Councilman McFall.
I would like to thank both Luke and Alyssa for all their hard work, and of course Melissa for writing it. For the human rights ordinance, I think that all this does is, like we already stated, is reflect how the city already feels about its residents. We are the friendly city, and now the even more welcoming community that we know that we have always been. So I would like to thank you guys for all of your hard work on that. I'd also like to remind everybody that we still have a lot of businesses that are not fully functioning at 100%. And if you could please continue to either order takeout, or you can dine in now up to, I believe, 50% and open until 11 o'clock if they so choose. But if you don't feel safe doing that, you can still order takeout from many of our restaurants. So please do that. I'd also like to comment on International Women's Day. We have many businesses in our community that are owned by women, including Matt and Mo's. We have Joe Bar and Frame and Cozy, just to name a few. So please frequent all of these, and I'd like to congratulate all of those women on their success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Sullivan.
Thank you. I also want to thank Luke for his work on the, and Melissa, of course, for their hard work on the equal rights ordinance. This is my second opportunity that I've had to bring forth really demonstrative change and kind of recognition for the LGBTQ plus community in Hazel Park, and I'm really proud of that. I was co-sponsor on the bill to recognize Pride Month, and now I've had the honor to second this motion to bring this forward. So I'm grateful that I get to do things like this for my community, and that I get to really kind of show recognition for what we stand for, and what we've always done here in Hazel Park City. I also want to wish all of my fellow women, elected officials, moms, sisters, daughters, a happy belated International Women's Day. I celebrated by working, but I am grateful for the strides made, and I really wanted to make a point that there's been a lot of studies happening that this pandemic has actually set back women's rights about a decade. And that's terrifying to me. We've lost a year in the workforce, and we've lost upwards of 17 to 18% of women out of the workforce because of childcare issues. And that's something that we really need to take into consideration moving forward as a country and as a state, and definitely as a city. So I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. I want to thank public comments. I want to thank our water department and the rest of the council for their support in these motions and these ordinances that we bring before you. So thank you guys for all your help.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad that Luke brought this up, but again, it just does tell us, just remind everybody what kind of city we are. It's the same with Adam volunteering and all the different volunteers. We recognize volunteers for the hard work over and over, and do appreciate it. And know that Hazel Park couldn't really function as it does now without the many, many volunteers on all the boards and commissions, and all different opportunities to volunteer. And to go along with the resolution, the human rights resolution, as I've said many times, if you love somebody, tell them. If you have children, hug them every day and tell them you love them. And thank you for coming out and participating.
Thank you. And I actually talked to Mr. Selman today. I talked to him yesterday. Did you?
He likes to comment on it. Just so you know.
I noticed that.
Tom Selman, if you're watching, we're paying attention.
I noticed that he followed my Instagram as well. I was like, look at Tom.
Anyways, I'd like to say thank you to the council members for doing such a good job of facilitating all this together. And it also represents the diversity of our community as a whole. As for women, the gay rights, LGBTQ rights as well, if I get that right. And hopefully it shows the world a little different perspective of who we are that we like to become. As a community of togetherness, friendly, and being forward enough to say we're wrong and making a difference in when we're for the future by being able to stand up and be that person. And that's what I think it's about. I've always said Hazel Park's a unique individual type city compared to other communities. I grew up in the big city of Detroit as a kid. And it's like you're lost in this big pool. You never really get to see the closeness of a tight-knit community. When I moved here when I was 19, it kind of grasped me as a community to get to know people and how tight our community really was, and how it still is, and how it's grown through the bad times and the good times. And it just makes me proud to actually be a resident here and able to represent the people of the city. And with that being said, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support. Any dissension, any discussion? Just want to make sure. All right, thank you.
Let's do it, man.
So that's kind of off first things.
For the record, the order doesn't allow you to put them at